Welcome back to Nightly Noir, where piety isn't always what it's cracked up to be. Thank you for joining me this Halloween night. While others may be out trick-or-treating or watching scary movies, we'll be looking into a different kind of scary movie. Tonight, we'll be delving into a Southern Gothic, psychological horror thriller with a film noir edge. This film has many different elements to it, despite its overall simple plot. It combines elements of cynicism, greed, and a surprising amount of altruism by the end, but of course mixed in with that classic noir style. But I believe that's enough preamble. Let's dive into Charles Laughton's The Night of the Hunter. To give a little background into how this production came to be, this film started off much like many other classic noir stories of its time. The Night of the Hunter began as a novel of the same name, penned by Davis Grubb. The screenplay, which was written by James Agee, was heavily based on this novel. What makes it even more interesting is that both the novel and the film take a lot of inspiration from the true story of Harry Powers, who was executed in 1932 for the murder of 2 widows and 3 children in Clarksburg, West Virginia. The film stars Robert Mitchum, Shelley Winters, and Lillian Gish. These are only the adult actors, however. The child actors, Billy Chapin and Sally Jane Bruce, are featured prominently throughout the film, as this is mainly their story in dealing with the antagonist, Henry Powell. They really didn't try changing the name from the real person that much, did they? But anyway, what is that story exactly? In all reality, the story of The Night of the Hunter is fairly straightforward. The film starts with Henry Powell getting arrested for stealing a car. We see early on that he's a self-proclaimed preacher. Now how do you like that? What kind of preacher drives a stolen car? Maybe he thought the Lord had ordained the car to be stolen or something. He christened it with holy water and thought, it's good to drive now. Anyway, he gets arrested and sent to Moundsville Penitentiary in West Virginia. Man, they didn't even change the location based on the true story. Pretty brutal. While there, he meets a man by the name of Ben Harper. He's at the penitentiary for killing 2 men during a bank robbery for $10,000. Honestly, in this economy, it's pretty understandable. Did I mention this film is set during the Great Depression? So these actions kind of make sense within context. Before Ben got arrested, he told his children, the 2 we'll be following throughout most of the film, to keep the secret of where he hid the money. Even though Powell tried to get Ben to tell him where the money was, Ben kept his lips sealed up until his death, where he was hanged for his crimes. It is at this point we get a glimpse at Powell's twisted view on his religion. We see him pray for guidance to find the money he found out about through Ben. The way he prays really makes you question the relationship between him and his higher power. Before too long, Powell gets released and heads to the hometown of Ben, which was one detail he was able to get out of it. He gets into town and starts speaking honey to everyone he meets. He tells everyone how he met Ben in prison and became good friends with him. But of course, it's all a lie. And who can forget all his preaching and Bible referencing? He somehow charms everyone he comes into contact with, especially Icy, the wife of the owner of the local general store. There must be something about his smooth southern drawl that makes everyone like him. Sort of like Foghorn Leghorn, I guess. Kinda sounds like him too. Powell also catches the eye of the recently widowed Willa, Ben's wife. A man's got the ultimate rebound skills, so good in fact that he convinces her to marry him practically on the spot. He uses both religious reasoning, as well as the importance of her kids having a father figure, as ways of manipulating her into wedlock. With all that being said, the son, John, has an instinctive distrust of the smooth-talking preacher. Meanwhile, Powell believes that John knows the location of the money somehow. And he's right, because John accidentally lets out that both he and his sister Pearl know the location of the money. Of course, that detail is only exposed when Powell goes out of his way to threaten John and Pearl, and makes it clear that he has dark intentions. Shortly after Powell and Willa are married, Willa starts putting the moves on her newfound husband. Feels kinda soon after her recently deceased husband, but hey, if you want to sleep with Foghorn Leghorn, who am I to judge? Well, our resident creeper preacher is having none of it. He gets angry and outright refuses to do anything suggestive with her. Instead of getting mad at herself, Willa starts convincing herself that his refusal to get jiggy with her is him attempting to redeem her soul in some way. In what seems like an overnight transformation, she and Powell begin preaching to the locals in a tent revival. Willa's attitude and personality almost make a complete 180, as she now behaves pious and pure, despite that not really being her character from the beginning. Her ability to gaslight herself is unmatched. However, it doesn't take too long for her to change her mind again when she overhears Powell making threats to her daughter Pearl when he's trying to get her to tell him where the money's at. Oh, Powell, if only you could convince children the way you can with just about everyone else in this town. Willa makes the mistake of letting Powell know she knows what he's up to, and in response, he just kills her off. Now we're really starting to see the guy's true colors. He decides to tie her body to an old Model T and drives it off into a nearby river. When the locals ask what happened to her, Powell, clever as ever, spins a tale that she left the family to pursue a life of sin. Now how convenient, then, that she just recently began preaching with you, huh? We then see Uncle Bertie, a character I failed to mention up to this point, fishing in the river where he finds the Model T and Willa's dead body under the water. I just have to say, I have no idea how they got this shot, but it is both beautiful and haunting. I told you this was a horror film, right? The way Willa's hair floats above and the lighting just feels otherworldly. Anyway, back to Uncle Bertie. He's an elderly friend of the family who enjoys spending time with John. When he finds Willa, he decides not to go to the police, in fear that he would get accused of her murder. That's a somewhat logical reason, I suppose. Once Willa is out of the picture, Powell goes full villain as he threatens the children. He has an unsettling way of speaking at this point.
I can hear you whispering, children, so I know you're down there. I can feel myself getting awful mad.
He states he's getting upset, but his tone and cadence don't reflect it at all. During this time, he figures out that the money he's been looking for is inside Pearl's doll. The children manage to escape and get to Uncle Bertie's place, only to find him in a drunken stupor, unable to help protect them. Honestly, Bertie, same. If I had witnessed what you saw in real life, I'd maybe try to wipe the memory away too. Since John understands that Uncle Bertie isn't going to be able to help them, they go and get their late father's John boat and use it to flee down the river. Eventually, they come across a house owned by Rachel Cooper, a woman who just so happens to take in stray children. Well, that's certainly a coincidence. She's like an orphanage, except without the government getting their grubby hands all over everything. Powell ends up killing a farmer for his horse and tracks down the children. He confronts Rachel and explains the situation, but Rachel isn't really buying it based on how John and Pearl react to his presence. This is where even more of the horror shines through. We see Powell basically stalk around the premises of Rachel's home. One particularly chilling scene is one where Powell begins singing an old gospel hymn while Rachel is at the front of the house with her shotgun. That's right, this woman is packing heat. You can see Powell's silhouette in the distance, and as he sings, Rachel joins in. The quiet night, the lighting, and the melancholic sound of their voices make this quite the eerie moment. Soon thereafter, Powell tries to sneak into the house to grab John and Pearl, but Rachel finds out soon enough and shoots the man outright. It doesn't kill him, but definitely deters him from trying that again. Rachel finally decides to get a hold of the local law enforcement. Not sure why it took her so long to do that, but hey, movies. The police arrive and arrest Powell, but before they take him away, John breaks down and starts beating Powell with Pearl's doll, knocking the cash out of it in the process. It appears he's having a vivid flashback to when his father got arrested. During Powell's trial, John cannot testify against him for some reason and just stays quiet. Powell gets sentenced, obviously, and Rachel takes the children away from the courthouse. Meanwhile, I see the general store owner from before leads a lynch mob to the police station. This woman, I swear. She was so charmed by Powell throughout this whole story, but as soon as there's solid evidence against him, she goes all out on him, trying to beat the law to the punch. They get Powell to safety, but the hangman tells him that he'll see Powell soon enough. We then get a small scene where John and Pearl get to spend Christmas together with the other children, and it's a relatively happy ending. So that's the story of The Night of the Hunter. Kinda spooky, eh? Not really in the paranormal way, more in the true crime, morally ambiguous way. And that's where we see the noir elements. This story is Southern Gothic through and through. The entire thing is set in West Virginia. The religious aspects drive home this even further. We see many morally ambiguous things, mainly in the primary antagonist, Powell. He is a force to be reckoned with. Not necessarily in the form of strength and power, but more in the psychological and spiritual sense. He's an expert manipulator. He knows what he wants, and he isn't afraid of getting his hands dirty to get it. Then there's Willa. Her morals seem to be based on the wind, as she swaps back and forth from piety to skepticism and back again. I'm not sure how good of a fit she was as a mother, but from what we get in the film, I'm of the mind that maybe she wasn't exactly cut out for it. Rachel is the shining hope of the film and that source of altruism I mentioned earlier. However, she doesn't have the personality that fits with that true altruistic nature. She's cautious, skeptical, and a bit sarcastic. She provides a nice foil to Powell's overwhelming presence. Now, I'd be remiss not to mention that this film didn't start out as a hit. In fact, it was pretty much dead on arrival when it was released back in 1946. The film's director, Charles Laughton, took the criticism of his work so hard that he ended up never trying to make another film since. And this was his directorial debut. The film didn't seem to resonate with critics and audiences alike. Many people criticized the choices on set design and cinematography. Others mentioned the problem of the film not appealing to a wider audience. A major criticism was Robert Mitchum's performance as Henry Powell, citing his overreactions and overuse of sweet talk. I find this interesting because, as I saw it, aside from his foghorn leghorn routine, as I call it, the menace and terror from his understated dialogues is quite scary. That dichotomy, I think, is where the true horror lies. Despite all of the criticism, The Night of the Hunter was eventually reassessed in the years after its initial release, and soon it became considered as a classic. Its popularity grew, and as more eyes saw it, the more people talked positively about it. It was praised for many things that were originally criticized, such as Mitchum's character. Other critiques focus more on the disturbing nature of the film's good versus evil storyline. When you think about it, the content was a bit ahead of its time in many ways. During this period, it wasn't uncommon to see characters who were overtly religious and designed to be a positive force on the story. So when you take a serial killer and make him appear as a devout follower of God, that definitely will make people's heads turn, especially for the 40s and 50s. Not to mention the lack of help that many of the adult characters provide the children. The children's mother didn't do much to help. Uncle Bertie was set up to be a form of support for the children, but he turned out to be useless as well. These elements provide even more tension and suspense, which leads itself credibly for the type of thriller this film was trying to be. It's great to see that a film like this can start out being shed in a negative light, then given enough time gets the recognition it deserves. It's a shame that Laughton decided that his film was too much of a failure to continue to pursue filmmaking. Who knows what great productions we missed out on because of it? What are your thoughts on The Night of the Hunter? Is it the right kind of horror noir for Halloween? Let me know down in the comments. Well, that's it for this episode. This has been Nightly Noir, and have a happy Halloween.